We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. A very recognizable 52 words here in America, the preamble of our beloved United States Constitution. We, the people, follow a document that was written before the ballpoint pen was invented, written merely with a quill. We, the people, follow a document written by rich old white men, just white, who wore powdered wigs and literally owned slaves. We, the people, follow a document that is much less than living, far from perfect, and the utter opposite of equal. Surprisingly enough, one of our most famous founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, wrote somewhere along the lines in 1789 that, quote, every constitution naturally expires at the end of 19 years because the earth belongs always to the living generation. If it be enforced longer, it is an act of force and not of right. With that idea in mind, why are we still following the same documents 234 years later? The matter is simple. The United States Constitution needs to be thrown away. What you're looking at here is an image of what the Constitutional Convention looked like in Philadelphia in 1787. I would ask you what you noticed about this photo, but the more important question is, what do you not notice? What you don't notice is a woman. What you don't notice is a person of color. What you don't notice is anybody from any other marginalized group. In this photo are the people who set up the foundation for the so-called living document that we abide by today. In an article titled Divided We Fall, written in 2017 by Ganesh Taraman, who is a professor of law at Vanderbilt University, he writes that the Founding Fathers denied women the vote, slapped a numeric value on the political worth of slaves, and enshrined human bondage as wholly compatible with a democracy founded on unalienable rights. Let's face the facts. The Constitution was written by a man and for a man, and a white man at that. But as a young woman in America, and an ally, an advocate for equality, and a believer in basic human rights, I find it crucial to use my privilege, my voice, and my experience to bring awareness into our extremely flawed society, especially by exposing all things wrong with our extremely flawed moral compass that we call a constitution. The goal here is not to fix what isn't broken. The goal is simply to get with the times. In an interview from 2013 with NPR, law professor Mike Simon states in an article by NPR staff titled We the People Should Throw Out the Constitution that, quote, it just doesn't make any sense, I don't think, to have a document that is as important as the Constitution, as entrenched as it is, given the fact that the world changes. After all, the Constitution has been the culprit of issues such as systemic racism, institutional bias, and the wealth gap in American society. And the list just goes on. Issues such as these have resulted in such a divided and polarized America that we haven't seen in decades. The last time we were this close to a constitutional crisis was literally the Civil War. The problem with this is literally the Constitution. It is simply outdated and resulting in most of the inequality and injustice in American society today. It is the gateway for a failing democracy and an inert political system. In an article titled Amending Constitutional Myths, written in 2019 by Lisa Miller, who is a Yale graduate and a clinical psychologist, she writes that our fragmented Constitution deprives Americans of routine access to political power, benefits the few over the many, and obscures these realities through opaque constitutional myths. This is completely irrelevant and proven by the systemic classism here in the United States, which should never have been a problem, but it is due to the built-in flaws within our Constitution. According to a data analysis done in 2017 by Rutgers and the University of Arizona, classism and racism are concurrent, which has been proven when you realize that the top 1% is 96% white. Sitarman also touches on this when he says that our Constitution wasn't built for a country with massive economic inequality and deeply entrenched political divisions. That brings me to my impact, which was an immediate result. These are alarming basic human rights. It's become polarized, and it was all a result of resulting in abortion laws, systemic racism, the wealth gap, deportation, the justice system, etc., and of course the Electoral College. In fact, author Malik Mia wrote an article in 2016 titled Institutional Racism in the 13th Amendment, where he essentially explains that systemic racism comes from the Constitution and that mass incarceration of black people is the backlash from the abolishment of slavery. To this day, black men are disproportionately incarcerated to any other ethnic group in the United States, and it all stems from slavery, systemic racism, and the lack of inclusion in the Constitution some 200 years ago. This is exactly why amendments are not enough and why the Constitution simply does not work. Because amendments do not work, the only solution is to get rid of it and create a new one, a new updated living document that ensures the safety and equality of everyone in America. Throwing away the Constitution may seem a little obscure and far-fetched at first, however, it is not as bad as it seems. In an article titled, "The New Constitution of the United States, Do We Need One and How Do We Get One?" author Jack Bierman writes, the Constitution has failed the people of the United States in so many ways that it's time to seriously think about making significant changes to it, or perhaps replacing it altogether, and this was back in 2014. So to conclude, the United States Constitution is the epitome of a failed democracy, yet a perfect reason for us Americans to embrace change. Without change, it is certain that America ends up in a basic human rights crisis with no way out, and currently the only way out is a new living document to supplement our stagnant Constitution. Since the last Constitutional Convention in 1787, we have evolved tremendously. By the early 1800s, powdered wigs finally fell out of style. We got our first ballpoint pen in 1888. We were introduced to sliced bread in 1928. We moved on to typewriters and eventually computers, where we even discovered the internet, built cars, and collectively as a country became way too obsessed with professional sports and became way too attached to our cell phones. We are an ever-changing society and will continue to be so, for better or for worse. Why shouldn't our Constitution be ever-changing too? Thank you.